I'm sorry?
Once you've done your cut, how long do you spend preparing? How long do you take, or without retiring it, the character or everything?
So it depends,
Yeah.
on this, for instance, on a job like this, they cast me first, and they hadn't cast the rest of the cast, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of that process, and I said, of course, because I can help find who I like to work with the most, and then I can actually get a whole rehearsal of the pilot done before we shoot, which never happens. So we had a lot of preparation for this one. For the individual episodes, we have no time. And by the end of it, the scenes that we were shooting that day, usually we would get the rewritten scenes that day. But our machine was kind of in place, and we knew each other so well, and we knew who we were so well, it wasn't that big a deal. But sometimes the way it works, someone drops out. Someone drops out of a film at the last minute, and they call you and they say, can you get on a plane to Vancouver tonight at 6? And for what? For this, for that? And that's kind of a luxury problem, and it's down the road usually in people's careers. But I love that kind of thing. So sometimes you have very little time to prepare. Sometimes you have a bit more. So that's another.
Yeah. There's a huge distinction between films and television as well. When you get a film script, that's the script. You have the beginning, the middle, and the end. And you know your journey, and you have plenty of time, at least a couple of weeks, to sort of make your choices and to find your through line and to do our weird actor schmactor shit, which is fucking so important. But in any case, in television, with something like Terriers, you don't have that kind of luxury. You don't have that kind of time. You do a lot of preparation, initially, and then but once the motor is sort of well lubed and running, you just kind of keep going off that. And what's good for something like this is they start to write for you. They find what moments you sort of float towards. When things are goofbally and you kind of make them heavy. You know what I mean? Or vice versa, whatever it is. It's an evolution. It's an ongoing process, especially with something like that. True Blood was a little bit different because it was a total ensemble cast, and we did 10-day episodes, and they're based on a series of novels. So there's a lot of work you can do. This, we literally would get the pages, the night before, and then we would call up the writers and say, I'm having a weird thing with this scene. And so we'd flag it, and the next morning we'd show up to work and there'd be new pages. But in the meantime, he and I were constantly running lines with each other and workshopping the material at home before we would get to work.
Michael.
It seems like you guys are involved with the creative process on the show. About your input and how you work.
Yeah, here, we'll give a couple of examples. On a television set, I'll make it quick. In TV, the writers are kind of the kings. The executive producers are generally the writers creating the show. And so a director will say to them, is this kind of how you wanted it? And if they don't like the director, they get new directors. In a film, director's kind of God. But what's interesting is the executive producer, writer kings are up in Los Angeles. We're down on the set in San Diego. And they have a director who we've never met before starting episode 6. And we're the kind of dudes on the show. And so we're the leaders of the crew. We're the, and so they're a little bit wary coming in. Not wary, but it's like the power, they're still the director. They're still going to give you suggestions. They're still the boss. And we work through the scenes with them. But for instance, there was one director who liked to do an awful lot of takes, which is fine in his prerogative. I prefer less sometimes, but I've worked with David Fincher, who will do 100 takes pouring water into a glass. So, it varies. But this guy did something interesting where I know how Michael works, and he goes deep on everything emotionally. And what he wanted to do was get a really wide master of this scene where basically we were kind of off camera in the deep background of an incredibly emotional scene between us. And that's how we work. So 13 takes into it, it's like, dude, we've blown this scene out. We've blown this scene out, and our wells are kind of empty on it, and you haven't even come in for coverage. You know, it's something you want to think about. And this is for the directors there. You have to think in terms of, you know, actors aren't robots. You know, if you're getting someone to go deep and produce tears and do this kind of stuff, you can't just go, well, do it again and do it again. And why don't they just want to? Because it's better every time. It's, well, because some people like to work differently. Some people think it's real fresh right off the bat. You know, some people are like that. Like, I start getting into it 20 takes in, and I'm like, well, that's weird, but that's you. You know, and so as a director, you know, you have to talk to you have to get a sense of how they work, and think about what's important, or who covers who first, or, you know, who likes to get the coverage first, who's better off camera, who's more patient with the other actor, just things like that. For instance, in terms of having creative control, or input, you're jamming so fast, and they're writing scripts so quickly that, just like acting in the scenes and doing a lot of preparation work where you get better and think about it differently every time, sometimes the scripts have a lot of shoe leather. It's just like, we need to get these guys here, and we're going to kind of have a funny conversation on the way. And one of the funny conversations on the way to a heist, was my schizophrenic sister and suicidal sister who's living with me is left in the care of his girlfriend, and you know, take it from there, and then we'll talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, this is one of those moments where you never know what's going to happen.
See, right? Wow, just threw it over there, and there it is.
So, yeah, what Donald said, you know, his sister is schizophrenic, and we've just sort of been introduced to her. And the first thing he says to me is like, "Help me get all the sharp objects out of the house and put away," implying, you know, that she's a cutter, and he says as much. She would attempt suicide, and this is his sister. Well, in the script, having known that, where, you know, he explains to my girlfriend that, okay, you're familiar with the rules regarding babysitting for Steph. She says, yeah. So we're driving, and I say, so what's the deal, man? There's rules for your sister?
Right, and there's she's very photosensitive, so there's
Yeah,
no
what?
lights,
She
but-
no lights. Don't feed her after midnight. Is she a fucking gremlin? What?
Yeah.
And it was so incredibly insensitive, given the temperature of the pool
We're
that we were
best-
swimming
we're,
in.
We're best friends in life, and we're best friends on the show. And it's like, if I knew Michael well, and I knew his history, and I knew he had a brother that would self-flagellate, and they would find him naked on the bathroom floor with 150 cuts in him, I'm not fucking joking about it with him. It's not funny. And it's like, if you're going to write the script, and you're going to write someone cuts themselves, and that's the temperature of the pool that you set emotionally for the two characters to swim in, then you can't say, well, suspend all that between you for a second, and let's have a funny moment. Because the only way, and this was what's fascinating about Michael's like, I'll make it work for you per your script, but I have to kind of rebuke him with the glance, and this guy just breaks down and weeps because of how insensitive. They're not going to get the jokey moment they want any which way, you know. And so this is how we flag these moments for them, and they're thankful of it. And, you know, once you look, if you're doing something farcical, whatever the rules are, once you set them, it's okay. But you can't establish the rules and then just start bouncing around in different directions. And, you know, and I'm not saying people haven't had successful careers while bullets are flying around their head saying smart, cool stuff, you know, or Bruce Willis style moments or whatever it is. But that's the stuff we hate. Now, I'm not saying people haven't been very successful at that, but we have input into that. But if you're a director, you know, you have, and I'm glad that directors are here, because believe me, as an actor, I'm pretty thick-skinned about stuff. Like, when a director comes up and they're like, how do I put this to you? If the scene's very purple right now, I'm like, just what do you want, man? You know what I mean? I'm not like this weird elfish fairy that does it, you know, and it's very condescending and patronizing. At the same time, understand the process we go through. We're not Robotrons.